Alright, another day, another video with the 435, and I think this one's going to be a good one. By the way guys, the 3 Series, a whole bunch of mods coming for this car, including an entire M Sport conversion. So if you guys want to see this car, definitely stay tuned. A lot of fun stuff coming for it, but today is about this one. And like I said guys, this is going to be a good one. But before getting into the topic of today's video, let's move the car to a spot with a little more shade, in a spot that's just a little better for filming. What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. So if you guys are new here, my name is Eamon. This is my 2015 BMW 435 and it is now officially stage 2. So this video isn't really going to be the process of tuning the car or even like a review of stage 2. Specifically, what I want to talk about guys is how much it costs to take this 435 to stage 2, which by the way is pushing about like maybe 370, 380 wheel horsepower. So to the crank, I want to say maybe like 430, which is very comparable to a 2015 BMW M4, basically an M4 from the same year. So what I want to talk about today specifically guys is, should you get a 435, build it to stage 2 and be able to be just as fast as an M4, or should you just go ahead and buy an M4? Now this isn't going to be a debate of which car is better. Obviously guys, an M4 is the better car. It's literally the M version of this car. No one's denying that. And also if you tune an M4 to stage 2, it's obviously going to destroy a 435. But specifically I'm talking about a stock M4 versus a stage 2 435. So let's just stick with some base numbers for now. So if you guys want to get a 435, especially in this car market right now, you're probably going to be paying about 25 to 35 depending on the mileage, the spec, and how clean the car is. Whereas an M4, you're probably going to be paying about like 40 to 50. Now obviously those numbers can vary greatly, but let's just say you can get a 435 for $25,000 and you can get an M4 for 40. I think those are pretty fair. Again, that can vary a lot depending on where you're from. It can also depend on mileage, spec, all that type of stuff, but we're just going to be taking base numbers. So just taking those base numbers, which I pretty much came up with just looking at a few M4s and 435s for sale, there's about a $15,000 difference between a 435 and an M4, again from the same year. Honestly guys, I think that's being pretty conservative. I'm pretty sure an M4 typically goes for a lot more than just $15,000 more than a 435, but I think that's fair numbers for now. But with that in mind, if you get a car like this, obviously once it's completely stock for $25,000 and you want to get it to the same power levels as an M4, of course, meaning that you're going to take it to stage 2, how much are you going to pay to get it to stage 2? So in order to get this 435 to stage 2, you need a couple bolt-ons. Some you technically need, some you do need, and then there's some additional mods which I think you guys should definitely get for your 435, at least to make it a little more comparable to an M4. Alright, so most if not all the mods I'm going to be talking about today guys, I actually already have on this car, so I can actually go ahead and show you what I'm talking about. So the first one being a downpipe. So it's probably hard to see, but the downpipe is in there guys. So in order to go stage 2, you need either a catless downpipe, so that means it has no catalytic converters at all, or a high flow catted downpipe, meaning it does still have catalytic converters. They're just not as like intense or brutal as the ones that come factory on these cars. So now I personally went with a catless downpipe. There are some downfalls to a catless downpipe. For example, the smell, which I personally don't really mind too much. This also isn't my daily, so it doesn't drive me crazy. However, the nice thing about catless is it is way cheaper than a high flow catted downpipe. So now parts also will vary in price greatly depending on the manufacturer, depending if you get it on sale. I, for example, have a VRSF catless downpipe, which costs me about $270, which honestly really isn't that bad. However, if you do go for a high flow catted downpipe, it is way more expensive. It's like $500+, which I personally just didn't think it was worth it, but totally up to you guys. So now the next mod that Boot Mode says that you need in order to go stage 2 is a large front mount intercooler. So you guys can actually easily see mine right in there. For this one as well, I also went with VRSF. This is one of the more pricey mods, so this is about like $380 I want to say. But anyways, those are actually the only 2 mods that you technically need to go stage 2 with boot mode. However, I would highly suggest not sticking with just those 2 mods. There are 2 more things that you guys should really get before going stage 2. I will say though, this is excluding the price of labor, so if you guys are going to do all this stuff yourself, you obviously only have to pay for the mods, but if you want to take it to a shop to do factor that in, because that can also get pricey. I know for my downpipe, shop quoted me at like $350, so labor can get expensive. I thankfully did most of the mods myself. For the downpipe, like I had my friend Chris help me out with that. He's an actual mechanic, so if you guys can do it yourself, or if you have any friends that can help you out, I would highly recommend that. But anyways, to avoid any more variables in like different shops and different areas and stuff like that, I'm only going to be sticking with the price of the actual parts. not the price of labor. So just keep that in mind. All right, so anyways, guys, moving along, the next two things that I think you should really do, although it's technically not required, is one, a charge pipe. So you guys can actually see mine right in there. Now, originally, the charge pipe that comes on these cars is plastic, and they are known to blow, even on a stock car and especially on a tuned car. So I would highly recommend upgrading it to an aluminum charge pipe. Obviously, just like with all the other mods, it can vary in price, but this one is, again, from VRSF, and this one cost me about like $220. So now we went from $650 to about $870. Still not too bad. So other than the charge pipe, something else that I would highly recommend you guys do is upgrade your spark plugs. So originally these cars come with like a Bosch rebranded BMW spark plug. Nothing wrong with them if your car is stock or on stage 1. But if you guys are going stage 2, you do need to get some NGK one-step colder spark plugs and gap them down to a specific amount. The spark plugs really aren't that expensive. They're only about like $85 for all 6 of them. But for the sake of easy math, I'm going to round up that $85 to 100, taking us up from that $870 to now $970. So I think I already alluded to this, but the next thing we actually need, guys, is the actual tunes. I'm gonna stick with boot mode because that's the one I know, but there are other common tuners like MHD. But anyways, with that said, for an actual boot mode license, it's about $600, which is, of course, the most expensive thing that you need to go stage 2. And then you also need to buy some maps. I would highly recommend getting the bundle, which is about $50, so about $650 for the tune and the maps all together. So now adding that to the total, if my math is correct, that's about $1,620 to go stage 2 on this car. Now, like I said before, guys, there are some mods that I still think you should do to a 435, at least to make it a little more comparable to an M4. Now, this car will never be an M4. There's just things that it can't compete with, like the wider track, the DCT, and just overall the S55 engine. But before I even get into those mods, let's just pause here really quickly and recap. So we said, guys, you can get a 435 for about $25,000. And with all those mods that we just talked about, that would leave you at $26,620, if I'm remembering correctly. Even if we round up to $27,000, guys, that is still nowhere near the price tag of a $40,000 M4. And now with this stage 2 435, you're competing, at least in terms of power, with a stock M4. Now, before a lot of people get upset, yes, guys, there is still a lot that an M4 has over a 435. Again, like I said in the beginning of the video, an M4 will always be the better car. No one's denying that. No one's trying to argue that. This video is just for fun, so please don't take it too seriously. But with that said, guys, if you're enjoying it so far, please smash that like button. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. All right, so now those mods that I was talking about before, guys, that don't really have to do with power and aren't really necessary to go stage 2. They're actually not necessary at all to go stage 2, but I just think you should do them in order to make this car feel a little more comparable to an M4. And those mods that I'm talking about, guys, is wheels and suspension. So this car from the factory came with these stock 18s. There are 225s. They're super skinny. The suspension, to me, felt a little floaty and just not as sporty as I would have liked it to be. So what I personally ended up doing was getting some KW V1 coilovers. Hopefully you guys can see them in there. So I went with KW V1 coilovers, and honestly, guys, these coilovers were perfect for me. They're only really height adjustable. You can't adjust dampening at all, which I personally didn't really mind. However, if you guys want like KW V2s, which you can adjust the dampening so you can make the car ride a little more firm, a little more sporty, and something a little more comparable to an M4, you can definitely do that. I paid about $1,600 for my coilovers, but if you guys want something a little more intense like the V2s, they're probably going to be like upwards of $2,000. But even still, guys, that leaves our total at $29,000, which is still $11,000 less than an M4. So of course suspension is great, but like I was saying before, guys, tires is super important. So again, the original ones came with 225s all around, which I think is just way too skinny and not wide enough for a more sporty car. So I did go for these Michelin Pilot Sport all seasons. In the rear it's 275s, and in the front I want to say it's 245. So definitely a lot more aggressive than the stock setup. These tires combined with the suspension makes the car feel like a completely different car. It feels way more sporty, way more planted. Now obviously you can't just get wider tires for your stock wheels, so you do need a decent wheel setup, just wider wheels and wider tires. Let's just say $3,000 for those. I think that's a fair price for wheels and tires. That is going to bring up our price from $29,000 to $32,000. We're getting close, guys, but we're still $8,000 off from an M4. And the last thing I want to talk about is actually back inside the engine bay, which you guys probably saw when I was looking inside there before, but let me just show you one more time. And that is this strut bar right here. This one is aluminum. It makes the front end feel a lot more put together and less floppy, I would say. That was one of my biggest issues with these cars, but that strut bar really fixed it. Now, in terms of price, this strut bar did cost me about $270, but we're just gonna round up to $300 for the sake of simple math. And that brings up our total to $32,300 for a car like this, obviously excluding all this extra cosmetic stuff, but you guys know what I mean. And I know that was a lot of rough numbers, we'll call it, and a lot of estimation. And again, guys, if you take into account the price of labor, that could get really pricey. All the stuff that I mentioned, with the exception of maybe like mounting and balancing the tires, were done by me and some friends that helped me out with a few of the projects. So do keep in mind the price of labor if you guys aren't gonna be doing the work yourself. But still, $32,300 compared to like $40,000 for an M4, that is still a big difference. Also, guys, I just want to say it's not always just a numbers game. It's not just a power game. It's also the fun of modifying the cars. So obviously you get a 435 for $25,000 and you spend that money modifying it, seeing it progress, working on the car. To me, that's the fun and the joy of doing this. I'd rather buy a car like that and then modify it, see it progress, rather than just buy a car and be like a beast of a car right off the bat. So also keep that in mind. It might be stupid to some people to buy a car like this then modify it, but to a lot of people like me, and I'm sure you watching, we love this type of stuff. We love modifying our cars. However, guys, I hope one day I'm able to get an M car and then just modify that car. That is the plan, that is the goal. If you guys watch the channel, you'll actually know that I'm selling this car soon and I'm working on getting an M car next, which that car will definitely still modify and we'll have fun with. So with that said, if you guys aren't subscribed to the channel already, definitely hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for more videos because we have a lot more plans, a lot more exciting things coming to the channel. But yeah, with that said, guys, drop this video a like and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.